Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from a sort of interesting life.com. You're joining me on board good old Narrowboat Tilly wearing an abnormally short sleeved t-shirt, and today we're going to talk about some pretty serious stuff. And this video is really going to be my official response to the questions that I get about what are my plans for the future, am I going to stick with Tilly forever, am I going to buy a bigger boat, and you can imagine there's a lot of variation, and especially now we've hit 4 million views on this YouTube channel, thank you very much. That's the sort of question I've got asked an awful lot. So, I suppose really my stock answer will begin by talking about that, has always been that I'm going to wait until I'm 30 and then look around at my life and say, is this what I want to do? Am I doing it right? And basically decide after I've squeezed the absolute last drop of fun and excitement and youth out of my 20s what my sensible, serious plan for the future is going to be. But that doesn't mean that I'm not constantly thinking and contemplating all of these different ideas and potential future variations of boat life and that sort of stuff. And this is something now where I suppose when I've always said like when I'm 30 that I'll decide, but I've got to really decide before then, because I'm not just going to wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to decide the rest of my life at this point. And over the last 6 months, I've really 100% got behind a certain idea. But then, over the last couple of, maybe the last sort of 6 weeks or so, I've really wavered on that idea and really opened up the debate in my mind again. So, let's get stuck in. The idea that if you'd have come to me not too long ago and said, Dan, what are you definitely going to do in the short-term future for your life? I would go, right, here's exactly what's going to happen. The summer of 2016 is going to happen, and it's going to be a great, beautiful summer on board, and it's going to be all the classic things going around the same sort of areas. And then as soon as autumn starts to kick in, we're going to get inside Tilly and we're going to absolutely gut her and quite literally take everything out from the inside, strip it right down to the metal, so you've just got a hole, and then from there redo everything. And I'm talking even going as far as removing that front wall there and welding a piece of metal down from the current sort of tip of where the roof ends down at an angle to the tip of the bow, so that you've added a sort of a sloping roofed extra 5 foot of indoor space to Tilly. And then from there, obviously put new insulation, new walls, and maybe a nice light wood ceiling as well. Make it look even more boaty than, well, the boat that it actually looks like at the moment. And then obviously add in a new fire, new kitchen bits and pieces, a new shower, and change the layout, built-in bed with more storage underneath, and really make it into the perfect layout of a boat that it would be a perfect layout in my eyes. And obviously, that carries with it quite a cost, especially when you're talking about putting in new appliances and stuff like that. So, that was what I was considering and contemplating. However, in recent times, I've started to think more and more, well, hang on, if I'm going to end up spending thousands on Tilly, and still basically have a very small boat here, perhaps I would be better off looking at other options and other boats and thinking, well, you know what? Perhaps getting like maybe a 45 foot boat. I mean, I'm not talking about going wildly big all of a sudden, because it's not really what I want personally. And obviously the smaller the boat is, in terms of things like the boat licence that are on a per foot basis, it makes things like that cheaper. And especially as time goes on, if I end up having to spend time in a marina, that's when, if you're in a per foot charge marina and you're there for like years, obviously the smaller your boat is, the more money you're gonna, or the less money you're gonna end up paying out, I suppose, rather than the more money you're gonna save. So those are just some of the things that I've been contemplating and considering. And so I'm gonna shock you in just a second after I've had a little drink here. Right, are you ready for the shock? So, I have quietly gone to a few different people privately and said, yeah, here's Narrowboat Tilly, here's the details, how much is she worth, how much would you pay, and how much would you get for a part exchange if I wanted to buy a bigger boat or a different boat or a more expensive boat. And really, I've been just trying to investigate all of the options before I go, well, of course I'm going to keep Narrowboat Tilly and spend thousands of pounds doing her up. And you're potentially thinking, like, depending on how much it costs and what I wanted on board Tilly after the refit and that sort of stuff, it would obviously change the price ultimately. If I add the final specs of right, is exactly what materials are going to be, is exactly what the new sink, the new cooker, the new fire, the new like wood burner and all that, new shower room and all that sort of stuff. Then once I got to the point of finalising that, I'm thinking, well, this is going to be X amount of thousands over time and maybe little extra bits and obviously new lights. Well, literally, you're talking every feature on the inside being new and solar panels and everything changing basically. So that's where a lot of this money is being spent in this theoretical situation. Whereas if I part exchange Tilly, if a boat came up and I thought, oh, that's the one, which unfortunately I haven't seen any boats that I'm thinking, oh, that's exactly the boat that I personally want. I've seen some excellent boats for other people at good prices, but unfortunately good price boats are very subjective, and we'll get to that in just a second too. But really, if I was going to part exchange Tilly for a bigger boat, then the extra money that I would pay on top of the part exchange for Tilly might actually not be outrageously or outlandishly far away from the money that I would just spend on Tilly if I went a bit wild and started spending a fortune and got really expensive stuff. So that's basically, I look at it like this, that when I first bought Narrowboat Tilly, I remember looking back and thinking, oh, why have I been so wasteful in my life? Why have I not been saving money like I have for the last few years, for the last decade? And obviously, I mean, I was very young, a decade before I bought Narrowboat Tilly. I was 15, for heaven's sake. So it's not like I was looking back and thinking, why was I so wasteful in my 40s or anything like that? So I can't be too hard on myself then. But at the same time, I always thought back then, flipping heck, and before I had enough money to like sort of buy Tilly and stuff, because I try and buy everything outright. I've never had any debt in my life, which I'm quite glad about. Although it does also mean I haven't got a credit rating, which can potentially cause problems, which makes no sense. So getting back on topic, I remember looking back when I first bought Tilly and in the years in the run-up to buying Tilly, thinking, if I hadn't been so wasteful, if I hadn't made such poor decisions, I would have enough money to just buy a boat immediately, and I could just go out and go boating and have a boat all of a sudden. And that was something that sort of, it really did annoy me back then, because I knew how wasteful I'd been in my younger years at that point. Whereas now, I've tried to be as frugal as possible, and as I say, it's like the boat costs and boat running costs per year are like £1,000 to £1,500. So that is about as low as I can get it, really, but being reasonable without starting to like make my own coal, dig up my own coal from however far underground it is and that sort of stuff. But in sense and reality, it's like, if you consider like last year, the most sort of ridiculous, wasteful thing that I bought was an Apple Watch. And that, to me, as you may notice I'm not wearing, that really represented like one of the things that was like, right, I'm buying that just for me as like something that I want and the novelty and all the rest of it. Whereas now I'm looking back at that and thinking, well, I really did enjoy it, and I do think it's like, it's a good novelty and a nice trinket, but it's not me to wear a watch that's hundreds of pounds worth. It's not me to walk around with a watch on that costs like almost half of what my boat running costs are. That's ridiculous to me personally and in the context of my life. And so that's why I no longer have that Apple Watch on me. And equally, since getting this new phone with the larger storage capacity, I am now going to get rid of my iPad and again save the money on that and not have the little phone contract. I mean, it's only, I don't know, a few quid a month to have the data on that. But again, that's all money that I'm saving, and it's money from the sales of those sort of items. And there's all sorts of little trinkets and bits and pieces that I'm getting rid of over time. That basically, well, it's money coming in, so that it's like paying for any potential future adventures, and it's also not stuff to spend more money on, like getting a new Apple Watch strap. Oh, I'll get this. Oh, go on, just that one. Oh, it's like X amount of pound a month to have my iPad on a phone contract as well. So it's all that sort of stuff that I'm really seriously locking down on and knuckling down on, these little wasteful things that I do, and just really getting back to the core of what my life's all about and what I always talk about. It's like simplicity, 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 everything as calm, sensible and simple as I can possibly do. And low cost is another massive bonus wherever it can be like added in, but not at the detriment of like making life unbearably hard or ridiculously frugal to the point of like having an impact on your life or your health or happiness. So again, there's so many different things that play into this, and I'm trying to just throw ideas at you here, so I apologise if this is all over the place in this video, but this is trying to basically let you see into my head of what I'm thinking about, to put these ideas and potential future things into context. So another thing that I was contemplating, and basically this ties into the idea of, if somebody comes along and says, Dan, I'm going to make you a really good offer for Narrowboat Tilly and I don't think you can refuse it, and I go, you know what, that is a really good offer and I can't refuse it, then there might be an opportunity like that came up where, for me, I might not get that opportunity again, and it might be ridiculous to not take that opportunity and then do whatever I do after Tilly, and whether that means that I get a boat straight away, whether that means I can't find a boat that I want for X amount of time, then what I was thinking, I thought this might be a really amusing idea, just to confuse you all, I'm afraid. And me and my friends always look at property and bits and pieces like this, and in town in Oswestry at the moment there's a few of the cheap, and when I say cheap compared to Tilly, it's a lot of money in terms of cost, but there's a few cheap flats to rent, above shops in the absolute centre of town, so you'd literally be in the most urban setting that I could possibly take you to. And I just thought it'd be quite amusing if one day I randomly just introduced a video, this is my flat in town, and showed you through the window and it's just streets and what have you, and the total opposite of everything that all these videos on Tilly have always been about. And again, just do that for maybe 6 months over the summer or what have you, while looking for another boat, or while thinking, well, what am I going to do? Should I just go off and maybe spend a few months touring around the country or something like that? Something totally different. Because again, there's opportunities that may come along that you'll never ever get again. And so there's so many things that, like I say, I think personally I owe it to not only myself now to make sure I explore every option properly, but I owe it to myself in the future, so that just as when I first bought Tilly I was looking back going, why was I so wasteful in my previous years? That I could look back in the future, maybe 5-10 years in the future, on whatever boat or wherever I am in the world, whatever I'm doing, and go, why on earth did I spend that much money doing Narrowboat Tilly up, and then have to sell it for a massive loss anyway not many years later because of this or this? Or flipping heck, why on earth did I part exchange Tilly and not just keep her and have her as the boat that I've always had? And now I've been through 5 boats because none of the ones after her were ever really what I wanted. And again, there's so many ways this can go, and there's so many things to contemplate and think about. And again, if I ended up living in town above a chippy or something for 6 months or a year, I'm sure that I could get you some good stories from what I would see through the windows of Oswestry. I can assure you that. Right, I'm going to have a drink and then wrap this up. So, I hope that this video has proved enlightening or interesting to you out there. Perhaps it has, perhaps it's been total boring rubbish. I've tried to get everything off my chest that I think will help to sort of show you where I am in my life and what I'm thinking about. And like I say, do I want to go from one boat straight into another boat and not do something totally different for a little while in the middle and go, yeah, you know what, that's great? And again, I mean, I'm picking up a few extra hours at work and stuff like that, and starting to knuckle down in terms of getting money in and being right, got to be sensible, got to be serious, can't be buying MacBooks and stuff like that randomly to do videos and all that sort of stuff, and can't be throwing phones in the canal all the time. And there's a lot to think about. There's a for me, obviously, it's to you looking in here, you're probably oh, yeah, those are interesting things. Oh, that's a point. Oh, yeah. Oh, imagine that if he strips it all back. Oh, that'd be good videos. But to me, this is literally my life and my future for potentially decades to come that we're talking about here. So it obviously is something not to be taken lightly. And like I say, I could spend an absolute fortune doing Tilly out. And I've spent thousands getting new stuff and top of the range bits and pieces, although top of the range isn't really my sort of style. But you could imagine, though, I could spend a fortune and get Tilly laid out exactly how I want, and then need to sell her for some reason, and be like, right, I've spent all this money, she cost me 11 grand to begin with, and now somebody else is looking in at Tilly and going, oh, well, I only really want her as a day boat. So you've got all this like fancy, you've got this cooker and all this stuff, and you've got a big built-in bed with loads of storage. I don't want a bed on it. I want more chairs and seating for the family. And people could look at Tilly with totally different eyes for totally different purposes and be like, yeah, well, I'll make you this offer because I've got to get rid of a lot of stuff and there's a lot of work that I've got to do to get the boat to how I want it. And so you can see now where the problem is, that it's all risk and reward and potential like issues. I think as well, something that you've got to consider for the future. I'm not intending to wander around the countryside on my own for an indefinite period of time. So you can imagine throwing in a second person, like that can totally change everything. Totally change everything in a moment. And that sort of stuff. Or it could make everything 10 times better and get another boat and 2 boats going around and Tilly's still here for years to come. Or maybe, well, again, there's so much. And like I say as well, as I'm looking forward towards my future in that and trying to obviously plan and be safe, that I know, like, well, if I end up not having a job for a while or if I can't work for any reason and that, I'm going to be able to like see myself through for a certain period of time and that sort of stuff. It's obviously massively important now to look more seriously at the work element of my life and different potential things I can do there to basically create my sort of security for not just like my 30s to 40s, but going well into the future if, and that's a big if, touch wood, I make it that far. I still have the horrible feeling that there's going to be a bizarre tree accident or something. Again, touch wood, let's not jinx things. You can see though, there's so much to contemplate. And say, for example, if I bought a bigger boat at 45 foot and then ended up getting like a 9 to 5 job 5 days a week, I would have to go into a marina pretty much guaranteed at that point and then pay for potentially a decade, 2 decades for marina fees like that, if that's what happened in my life. And of course, that extra 15 foot that you've added on Tilly, if you're paying for as a per foot basis in a marina, whichever marina you may or may not be in, then you can imagine that that extra 15 foot is literally half of the entire cost of Tilly to be in that marina at 30 foot. So there's so many things to think about and so many potential issues, because as I say, there's so much with boats that can vary from boat to boat and life to life, person to person and so on, that it's so hard to go, well, this is what my life's like now, but in 5 years' time it could be totally different and I could be going, should have stuck with Tilly, because now all of that money that I thought I was being clever by not spending on Tilly and saving a little bit and maybe part exchanging for another similar boat, slightly bigger boat, all that money's now going to go on extra mooring fees and extra boat licence fees and all of that sort of stuff. So this video has gone on an unbelievable amount of time. As you can see, it's something that's quite important and close to my heart. So I hope that has put you in the picture a little bit. Hope that nobody's too shocked and outraged by the idea that maybe one day there won't be a Dan and Tilly. But I'll just say, check out my other videos for loads of proper outdoorsy videos and things like that. Feel free to check out my short boat life books as well. You'll find links to those on the Kindle. Just about boat life and stuff, really. And until the next time, just have an absolutely fantastic day. Keep it boat worthy. I really need a drink and to go to sleep. And of course, farewell.